Yeah.
It's okay. Really, it's okay.
Hello.
Hi, Jerome. How are you?
Oh, fine. Thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Robert, I tried to move things around a little bit in the agenda to actually be more helpful than I usually than our agendas have been in the recent past. Um, I noticed that at the level that there's we have a link. We had a place for a link that that did time zone conversions, but that had, at the very top, and even that had gotten taken off. So there was a certain amount of shrinkage that's happened since the last time I looked at the agenda closely.
Yeah. I think that it's good. Focus the agenda on what's needed to have an effective meeting.
Yeah. The other thing I did, and this is kind of following up on a conversation that I had with Robert, was making sure that we made it easy for. Would you describe that as a regret? But he is in Zulip, I guess.
Well, so this is one of the quirks of the Metaco Zulip integration, is all someone has to do is have their client running, and they will
Yeah,
show
yeah,
up
yeah,
as a Zulip
exactly.
user, whether or not they're actively present or not.
And I use the Zulip client especially during IETF meeting week. So I know what it looks like when you're there, but you're not really there. Hi, Michael. Good to see you. He's coming and going.
Yeah, still getting through the joining woes.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, I have not noticed what it looks like when you are in pre-flight and things like that. I have not looked to see what shows up in the rest of the group. But yeah, cool. And let's assume that Michael will pop in at the right times. We have close to a quorum, especially with Michael. So I wonder if we could go ahead and get started.
I'd like to throw something in.
Please do.
One of the things that I've found very effective for Metaco meetings, where particularly where everyone is remote, is to share video whenever possible, and to make the meeting as close to a meeting in the room where people are actually having live interaction.
Excellent.
Certainly, it's not a required thing, but I've found that it's something that's been helpful, and I encourage anyone that has the equipment and to do so and is willing to do so to just share. I
Cool.
will remind everyone, however, that these sessions are recorded and they do appear on YouTube after some number of hours after the interim has concluded. Basically, there's a process that the video goes through that gets then pushed to YouTube that involves some manual touches. So it takes a little bit of time, but it is usually within a day.
Yeah, I found the YouTube for the AVT Core interim earlier this week to be extremely helpful, and it popped up hours later. I think I was watching that in the evening of the meeting day. So let's go ahead and remind ourselves that we are an IETF activity and that we are covered under Note Well, and that we will please be kind to each other as we almost always are. Has anybody got comments about the previous meeting minutes?
Not for me.
Yeah, they are fine for me.
Excellent. I can do the accepted with no comments. Excellent. Robert mentioned that our meeting, so we have only done our meeting requests through April, I guess it is, if I remember correctly. But Robert noticed that the meeting date that we would normally have in October is extremely early compared to, well, is extremely close to the IETF meeting week, which is like the following week. And so, you know, anybody who's participating in that, which certainly includes Robert, would be traveling the week before for various and sundry reasons. So we should move this earlier. And I looked up the dates, and we could do this 2 weeks earlier on the 14th and 1 week earlier on the 21st. And our previous meeting week, our previous meeting would be the 23rd of September. Does anybody have an objection to the 14th?
Fine for me.
Fine for me also.
Cool. So we will do that. And that got moved. Cool. So now we can go ahead and turn those in. So the first thing we had on our list was a discussion of application Xfont OTF. We sort of have an answer from Ayanna about what to do in private email, and Robert, tell me if I'm getting this correct, but my understanding is that if we want this registered before we come up with a Matroska V5 or some specification like that, we would go through the expert review and ISG approval. Is that what you heard?
That's what I'm expecting, and we're still waiting for the AD to weigh in on whether or not the AD thinks that's the way it's going to go.
And the other thing was just it wasn't totally obvious to me if we were saying that this is the same as that in a previously registered media type, whether we would do that or whether we would turn in a complete template, and Ayanna would say, "Oh, this is the same as that," and make that happen. Was that obvious to you, or is that another question?
All right. So restating, if it is the case that the application Xfont OTF is just a deprecated alias for what was it? Application OTF, I guess. Application /font /OTF. Yeah. If it is just a deprecated alias and everything else is the same, then I think all that has to happen is that we send a request to IANA that goes through expert review that says, please go to the current registration and add this to the deprecated aliases line. Because there was an RFC that went in a few years ago that created this notion of a deprecated alias in a registry. So there was an outstanding action for us in this process, us as chairs, to find out from the experts in the group here whether or not that is actually the case. Is it just another name for exactly the same thing?
Yes, it is, but the tricky part here is that if there's a registry for other deprecated things, that new element is already part of another list in our document, which already has other deprecated aliases, but I don't think we created any IANA registry or anything for these aliases. So why is this new one needed to be added somewhere when the others weren't?
So if I'm understanding that
If you
correctly,
want to, you
Go
can
ahead, I'm
check
sorry.
the pull request 921 if you want to look at what we're talking about. 921. Maybe I can
Yeah,
put the
here.
Yes. So
So
if
if I
you
look,
click on file change, yes.
yeah.
So you see above and below, there are already existing other deprecated media types that should not be used, but we mention them because maybe people will find them in the files. And that one is just another one, but it's not more special than the other ones.
Steve, am I understanding that you're thinking that there's no real reason to add this to an IANA registry because that's not what we did with the other deprecated MIME types or media types?
I understand it. That's why first for that change in the document, I was only suggesting to do an errata and just add the new text, and it's not any reference to anything else.
Well, and the
If
feedback
you
from the
click on,
editor was that an errata was the wrong tool for this. You don't cause a change in what would effectively end up being a change in a registry via the errata process.
okay, yes, but it's not the media type itself, it's just the text addition that is a change.
Yeah, well, and it's also the same kind of, I guess we could ask the AD if it's oh yes, this is obviously something we meant to be there, as opposed to something that needs to go through a consensus call again, right? It skirts an edge that's a difficult needle to thread.
And Robert, if I got this correct, that basically there's the other deprecated values are not in a registry. Is that right?
As far as I know, yes. Well, maybe there's
I can
other
verify.
RFCs that I did find somewhere. I don't know, but if there's a IANA, we didn't reference it. For us, it's just text with a list of media types that exist in the wild.
So
the kind of question that's usually asked when we are trying to capture this information is, who is this information going to help?
yes.
So as somebody that is out in the wild and they encounter the deprecated type and they want to know what does that mean, should they be able to find that through the registries? Is that Would them
Uh,
being able to find that through the registries be helpful at all?
Um, Probably, but like I said, we didn't do it for the other ones. So we would have to do it for all of them. And that means adding that one in the process. But otherwise, that registry doesn't exist. And only the text in the document says that these media types exist. The names probably exist somewhere. If you Google them, I'm sure you can find what it is. But we didn't do anything special about them.
All right. So the question now is, should we? So if the answer is no, then we can drop this. Attempting to go back and just add text to the document with an errata is likely to not get approved at the IESG level because
Okay.
that's a substantive change to the document that is something that should have gone through last call. They would accept something that would be like a draft that is an updates that says this goes and adds that, but that's a fairly heavyweight thing for what I understand we're trying to add.
Yeah.
And this
So,
may all interact with a question that I had later in the notes about what updates to the content of the GitHub repository that are to texts that were published in the Matroska RFC mean, right? So when we get to that point, they've got a question about is this actually work that's starting an Abyss document or not?
So the RFC, so all the RFC XML that we send each time are generated from the GitHub repository, and the RFC1 correspond more or less to a tag that I think it's called RFC 9559. So if you
yeah,
want to regenerate the XML that we sent, that is almost the same as the XML you download from the IETF, you use that tag. Everything we add to that document should be in errata, and it would be tagged that way. That's what we did for EBML. EBML, we had a tag of the repository that says that's the state that correspond to the RFC. Everything that's added to that document is an errata, and we can reproduce the XML or the text file or HTML file, etc. That's with the additions compared to the RFC, and then we can do the diff to make the errata from the document.
Do you wait for the errata to be accepted before you commit to the repository, or are you making the commit to the repository and then submitting that as an errata?
So far, we first commit and then we submit. But
And
I
what would
mean,
you
the
do if
commit,
the errata is rejected or held for document update?
we can revert the commit, we can add another commit. Then, I mean, the commit itself is not does not engage in anything that we are proposing. This change is just like when we do a lot of changes to a document, we do all the commits and then we send for review. It's the same thing. If the review is not accepted, then we edit until it's accepted, and then that state can be considered okay. For an errata, that would be the same. If the errata is rejected, we have to edit, then we add a commit on top until it's accepted, and that's the errata. The commits, you can have like 10 commits for one errata, it doesn't matter.
so I and Robert, I'm I think what my job right now is to translate between two groups of people that are just starting to talk to each other. That basically what we've been calling errata has been, that's been things we've been looking at internally in CELLAR. And so functionally what that means is that we've already functionally started on a BIS document. Does that make?
That's not what I just heard Steve say.
Okay, so then I'm failing as a translator.
I think I don't know what you call a best document, but basically, for the EBML, where we already have some errata, we add the errata on top of the main document. So if we have like 3 errata, the document you generate and you see is the sum of the RFC plus all the 3 errata.
Steve, let me make sure that we're not talking past each other. When I'm saying errata, I mean a artifact that is at the RFC editor's website.
Right.
Yes.
Is
For me,
that
errata is like a diff, differential text, and the format itself in IETF, it's a format. For Git, it's a different format, especially since we generate. For me, it's the same thing. It's just the end format that's different. But I
well,
understand what you mean. For
let's make
IETF,
sure
errata is really a special thing in the database with a special format.
that represents that a process was followed, and that's the important distinction.
Okay. But
So
that's in parallel from what happens at GitHub. GitHub is the way to edit and propose and make the change that we're going to propose to IETF. And
okay,
they both happen in parallel.
let me be very specific about what an RFC editor errata can contain. Those errata are, this is a correction to a flaw that was part of the publication process of this document. It is we messed up some spelling and we've corrected our spelling. Or here is this thing where it's dead obvious what we meant, but there was a grammar error that, needed to be clarified to get back to the dead obvious thing. It is not we've learned since then that here's this new requirement that you need to add, right? Or here is a slight change to the behavior of a protocol. Those are not errata. So are any of the changes that you're describing of errata changes to the way the protocol behaves?
For EBML, yes. The one we're talking about the font, I would say no. It's just it's not a correction; it's an addition.
And if there's any possibility that there would have been contention at IETF last call about that addition, which I don't think there is, but this as I'm trying to help highlight what the issue that we're facing is if there was any possibility for contention that would not be accepted as an errata, it would have to go through some other process.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So this concept of a BIS document that I was bringing up before is when we've got a protocol change, like you've mentioned for EBML, right? If it's got an RFC number, it does. I don't know it off the top of my head. I apologize, but just say it was RFC foo. The working group would start working on a draft IETF CELLAR RFC foo BIS, which, French for again, right? That was targeting being eventually published as an RFC, but would not carry the weight of IETF consensus until it was published as an RFC.
Okay.
If I'm telling you stuff you already know, you can stop me. But if this is, I'm hoping that this is useful for me to walk through.
Robert, I believe that it's useful because you're helping the working group fit into the way the rest of the IETF thinks the IETF process works. And just to follow on what Robert just said, the reason we know that something in a document has IETF consensus is because we ask the IETF community, do you have consensus on this document? So when the document is published, we know that happened. For any of the documents we're talking about.
That's what the IETF last call thing was all about.
Right. So I popped up this. We don't have any errata at all to the Matroska document. We have one on FLAC, and it looks like this, and you'll see status equals verified. Verified means that area director has said, yes, this is an errata. Yes, it is correct. Yes, implementers should read this and think and know that it says this.
Yeah, and in particular, no, there was no need for this to go back through a consensus judging process.
Yes. So another status, if I'm remembering correctly, another status would be held for document update,
yep.
which is that someone says this should have happened, but it's a technical change to the document, so we would not do this through the errata process. We would not make this change through the errata process. We would make it the next time a document is updated. So I think those are the two. I think those are the two RFC editor errata system states that we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, there's also rejected, but
yeah.
For HDFU, the one thing you said that wasn't quite on point was that you started with, yes, this should have happened. And that's not what it means. It means a process needs to determine whether there's consensus for this change.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So for the font, do you think the best option would be to do a BIS document with just that change added, and then we go through review?
Well, so I'm not convinced that that's needed. I mean, that's certainly one way that would definitely succeed, right? Mm-hmm. At least in terms of following all of the processes that the IETF has in place. I'm still wondering if the right thing to do isn't an expert review thing that says, hey, here are these, and if it's more than just the one that you were pointing to, deprecated aliases, all the information is the same, this was just another name you might have encountered for this in the wild, gets attached to the current registry. And if that happens, that review alone might be enough to show that there would not be a contention about the addition to the text in the document, and errata could say, hey, go look, this registry got updated. This text should be updated to reflect what happened in this registry. So for something as simple as, here is just a fact that we failed, that was true at the time this consensus call was made, but we failed to record this fact at the time that the consensus call was made. I think that would fly.
And I think the reason I'm confused is because what we're talking about is something that's not in a registry now. So we would not be adding it to a registry. We could add it to the registry of useful media types, but then we should add the other ones that are in this document that are not in that registry either. Is that it? Am I tracking this right?
That's what I'm hearing
Yeah.
from Steve, and we'll turn it back around, Steve, I think, as a question to you of whether or not it would make sense to read, and I'll do this in email. You don't have to deal with it
Yeah.
on the call
Yeah.
here. Whether or not it would make sense to attempt to add to the registry for application/font/OTF a list of deprecated media types, and I'll go back and look at the document again to see, or you could send me mail, if there are other types that have the same kind of information that we could/should capture with a similar action.
Yeah, the registry right now doesn't exist. I was just checking RFC 8081, which defined the font media types, and also the IANA registry, and they do not have a notion of deprecated media types, even though there are plenty that were used in the past. So it's basically something they probably consider that did not care to do a registry for. On the other hand, it might be weird to do a registry for things not to use. So I don't know. But I mean, we can try and see what happens. The other option, apart from that and the BIS document, is the Matroska V5 document that we will produce. In that, we add a few things in various parts of Matroska. It's not just adding elements, it's adding other things, codecs and things like that. So we could also add in the list of deprecated media types for fonts that we had in RFC 95 and 59. We also have these media types that you might also encounter that should not be used. So it would just be an addition to the list that already exists in the Matroska 1 to 4.
Cool. So we had a bunch of time with that, and I sort of apologize, but I think it's been good for getting a little bit more clarity about what we could do. But I
we
am
will,
sensitive to just how much impact that once we get through this and it's all done, it will have on
the community of people
the
who's,
future implementers. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
The downside of the Matroska V5 document is that unless we repeat the elements from the other documents, the information would be scattered in two different documents. And if you read one and not the other, you wouldn't realize that this media type exists as well.
Yep.
Cool. So
Personally, I have no preference. Anything that gets the job done is fine for me.
cool.
So I think that concretely, I'll talk about this stuff with people in person at the Bangkok meeting to figure out what our best possible next steps are, and I'll reach out to Steve for information to inform those conversations.
Okay.
Cool. Cool. Okay. Is there anything else that we need to say about the move it beyond 9559, or this is just the previous discussion also?
Yeah, I think that was it.
So at least when Spencer and I talked last week, 932 hasn't been merged. Is it just waiting for somebody to go punch a merge button?
I'm checking.
So while you're looking at that, I guess I'll just make one more comment, and I don't want to burn a bunch of time on it in the meeting, but maybe we have an email conversation about it. Just following on what if this work is working towards the next version of an RFC. Coming into this repository, not being steeped in that repository's lore, I still can't find the documents. I understand better from the conversation today what some of the tagging mechanisms will help with, but just looking at the individual files that are in the repository to figure out what file affects what document is, I think, really inaccessible should we try to bring anybody else in from the IETF and actually get them meaningfully engaged in what we're doing. And I'd like to suggest general pressure towards making it easier to find a draft. I mean, it would be nice if there were if we don't have a file that represents a draft, having a roadmap to these are the files that are compiled into this draft, and having a pointer to that roadmap easy to find from the front of the repository. So
you mean a documentation, because what you call it's basically there's a make file, and the make file says which file are used to generate which output.
yeah, so
If
something
you're
in
not familiar with make files, but on the other hand, every time we merge something, it generates the XML that we could send for update, except they're not really visible. You have to go to actions and look for a merge request and look at the artifacts. I don't know if there's a way to make the artifacts more visible, but basically all the XMLs that are generated from the make files. So every time we merge something, all the XMLs are regenerated. So maybe I can find a way to make them more visible, but then it's still not very readable. It's XML files.
Okay, so at a high level, here's the problem I want to solve. I want to be able to take a random person that doesn't know this repo from anything, has never been here before, but they know they've looked in this particular document and they've got a suggestion that they want to make, and they'd like to make that suggestion in the form of a pull request. How do they find the guts of the thing that they need to make the pull request against?
Well, if they know where they want to make the change, they can look for the text around what they want to change, and they will find quickly the markdown file that correspond to the text they should be editing.
Yeah, I think that last step is a lot harder than you think it is because you're very familiar with the repository.
Yeah, but then I mean, if you know what you want to change, at some point I cannot tell you more than this is going to be this file. At some point, people will have to figure out how to find a file,
It's more
whichever.
they look for the specific text in the repository and they edit the corresponding file.
Yeah,
So
that's what I
So
mean.
you have
There's
to
a
learn how to
search
do
feature.
GitHub search, right?
Yeah,
And
I
and
use
there's even an
my text editor.
editor.
So yeah. I just fork I download the repository and I just use my text editor for finding the corresponding text. It's just, yeah, the RFC is not the source of the code of the text. It is the markdown for us.
Yes, and the markdown, if you click on a file, it's well, some of them, not all of them, but you can already see the formatting and everything. So it looks a lot better than an XML file if you look
Yep,
at it.
yep. No, I understand. I
And that's
absolutely
actually the
understand
whole
working
point.
Markdown. So
It is very easy for a lot of people to use Markdown rather than any other XML or other format.
yep,
Oh yeah, yeah.
lots of conversation in the community about using Markdown as the editing tool. So
Yeah. So I did notice that, or I not noticed, but I mean, observe that anything that we can do to makes a new participant's life easier, even if that's just adding text to the README saying what we just said, that's information Robert didn't have when he started participating in the group.
Mhm. I think one thing we could do is make a directory for each document that we produce. Because right now everything is at the root, because at first there was just one thing and then it piled up at the root of the repository. Now there's, I don't know how many files, but maybe 50 or more. We could do a directory per document. So the Matroska main codec tags. So basically we have 5 documents right now, so 5 folders, and all the parts needed to generate that document would be in that folder, which is not the case right now. So it's already easier to find first you look for the document you want to edit, and then you'll have like a front marker, back marker, and then a few other files, and just from the name you can already figure out where
awesome.
you should probably and then if it still doesn't help, then you can use the search, sorry, in GitHub.
And that kind of thing just sounds like it would be a very helpful thing to do
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
it isn't a total pain for dealing with reorg for the repo. So
Yeah.
I can do that.
And I think I know how to find things based on tags and things like that. But I mean, I'm guessing, and I've been around you folks for like 4 years. So yeah, this would help a lot.
Yeah, and there's the sorry, I have to drink.
Cool. Okay. Excellent.
so I'm gonna try not to slow us down anymore for today. We're 45 minutes in. So
And we have how many PRs do we have for my review on tags 15?
I think there's lies a dozen open. There's only actually one that might be tricky, and I'm waiting for the input from Moritz, which is doing the software that everybody's using. So I want to make sure the text change doesn't impact him. But the other ones are just basically your suggestions that I did in merge request. Yeah, and just before I wanted to mention maybe the one tricky part of the files we have with the makefile is that some of the markdown is generated from XML files. And that's unless you know it, you cannot, and you don't know, you don't read the makefile, you're not going to figure it out. But otherwise, if you know, like the text that ends up in the markdown is the same in the XML file. So if you know the text you want to change, if you look with a search in GitHub, you will find the text, except it might not be in a markdown file, it will be in XML file. So people who are not familiar with XML might have a harder time to edit.
Yep.
So specifically on the dozen PRs, Steve, are there any of them in particular that would be helpful to look at?
There's the 960, but it's mostly, like I said, for Moritz. I will have to look at the libav format, libwebm, etc. Actually, no, because most of them don't care about tags. But maybe libav format does. But it's basically the parsing of numbers, which for now it was a bit loosely defined. And maybe we want to have a stricter format. And I have to check, maybe even in MKV Toolnix, there's not even parsing either of numbers. That means nobody has been doing it and we can decide. But yeah, I want to make sure that one in existing code and all the rest is almost straightforward.
So just to clarify what I was looking at, the 960 here is an excellent example of what I was hoping to see with the with the PR in this space, and it sounds like a good action for Spencer is to look over the PRs that have these tags. Oh, sorry, not there. This one that have these tags. And you can give me the action to review these. Does that sound right, Steve? I will assume the answer to that is yes.
Oh, sorry, my microphone was off. Yes, yes, I can send you a link. I can put it in the chat.
Oh no, I mean I know where to look.
Okay. But yes, you just click on spec tags, and that's all you need to review.
And I can do that. Cool. And did I understand that you've got some PRs that are also for Codec? Based on my review?
We do, but
okay.
I mean, there's 31 pull requests, so there's more. But even for the codecs, there aren't that many. If you remove the Matroska v5 tags, there's like 2, 3 of them.
Yeah. Okay. I can do that. Cool. Is there anything else that we need to talk about on today's meeting?
Not from me.
No, no. How about FFV1? It is still ongoing process about the GPU decoder, but it is not finished, so still pending.
And I have not looked to see. I have not looked to see if the nice people at the National Diet Library of Japan have the DVD format books deposited yet.
I added their RSS feed to my reader to make sure every time they publish a news, I
Oh,
know
good,
about
good.
it. I'm waiting for something about DVDs to come up, but so far nothing.
Cool. When it does, please poke the list.
Yes. Well, I think it will be big news in the tech world once they do so. But
Yeah.
I'm expecting that it will be that you have to go there and it will be a paper thing. I don't think they will publish it online, but we'll see. But we have people going to Japan once in a while, so we can have someone go there and take pictures of all the pages.
Yeah, you could tell that this is a working group with archivists. Excellent. Anything else we need to talk about today?
Well, so can we put, there's a question about Control 05, right? Whether or not we want to keep working on that document or drop it. Are we at a point where we can make that decision?
So sorry about what?
Control 05.
What is that?
We're just asking, is there an update about whether we want to drop the document or just wait for it, to ripen, the time to ripen.
And we have the option, even if something's been adopted as a working group item, to say, oh, well, the working group's decided it doesn't want to work on this anymore, and we just release it from the group.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
We can drop this at least for now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I'll go push the buttons that will release it from the group. And if that, for any reason, turns out to be not what was wanted after you see the effect, let me know, because it's undoable.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say nobody cares.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is not I'm almost positive there is not a single working group chair in the IETF that knows more about how to do the data tracker than Robert does. We need to get all the use out of that we think we can. That is a unique resource.
Okay.
I was only an area director for 6 years, and I've never done that. Cool. Any other business?
No.
No. Well, next time I'll try to have a webcam. I mean, I have a webcam, but I'll try not to be in my pajamas.
Sure.
Hello.
Well, now you're on YouTube.
Sure.
Yeah,
excellent.
hello.
No, it is a trade-off to consider, but I will say again that I have found it speeds things up.
Yeah.
See, my nice pajama.
I love seeing you guys. Absolutely. Cool. Is there anything else we need to talk about today?
No.
Cool. If there is not anything else, I can give you guys 6 minutes back, and I can move our minutes into the data tracker.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have
Make
a
good
good day.
choices. Take
Yes.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye.